On this week's episode of Get Your Shit In Before It's Too Late, we're finally planting our alliums. We have onions, leeks, shallots, and garlic. I'm going to show you what it looks like. This is my front yard, and you can see all the stuff. It's hard to get it all in one frame. It's actually a pretty small yard. I don't know if you can see this, but it's not that big, right? So let me show you what you're looking at here, all right? From above, this first line of drip all the way down is red onions. 3 onions per hole every 30 centimeters, 31 holes, you do the math. The next line over is all white onions, same exact numbers. Then the third line over is leeks, just one line of leeks in that row. I have some in the back. These two, you can see these little bulbs. These are shallots. Each one of these shallots will produce something like 7 shallots. And in the back, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 of garlic. Got double rows of garlic spaced every 4 inches or so. It's a lot of garlic. Each one of those cloves is going to produce a head. So that's pretty exciting. It took me about, 7 heads of garlic, maybe 6, to fill that whole thing up. So it's gonna be a lot of garlic once we get it up. Here we've got our onions walking very thin in the line. Onions on either side, go onion. Down here, the leeks, single leek per hole, buried 8 inches or so into the ground to get nice long white stems. The shallots spaced every 10 inches, and each one of these guys is going to grow, like I said, 6 or 7 hopefully. And here are our 4 rows of garlic. Like I said, each one of these cloves will produce a full head, so we'll maybe have some really nice garlic braids come Pesach time. So now I have buried everything that was, but I did leave the tops of these shallots exposed, as is important. So if you're interested in the how-to, I'm going to do like a very fast, in a nutshell rundown. Garlic, as you saw, were just cloves of garlic, ideally not Chinese garlic. They have, I've heard, been engineered not to sprout. So the purple garlic that's available on Pesach, I got a lot. And you just take apart the cloves before you plant them, put them in the ground in a deep trench, mix in some compost, bury them, call it a day. Shallots, bought from the store, and they were dug in a shallow trench. Also mixed in some compost and buried them, keeping their tops exposed. Roots down, pointy end on the top. Important for shallots. Leeks and onions were both started in flats 8 or 9 weeks ago. The onions had their tops trimmed 2 or 3 times to stimulate their root growth. Leeks were not trimmed. At planting time, I dug a trench for the onions. I put them in 3 to a hole spaced every 30 centimeters. And I mixed in some fertilizer, balanced a normal fertilizer into the trench when I planted them. The leeks, I used a rebar pole because that's what I had, and I made a very deep hole per leek, about 8 inches deep or so. Put some fertilizer in the hole and put the leek down, burying most of the leek, having some green on the top. That is to hopefully get those kinds of leeks that have the long white stem, which is the part that we eat, really. So to hopefully get a long white stem underneath the ground come harvest time, and also to have to avoid hilling leeks with more dirt as they grow, and hopefully doing a pretty low maintenance crop. So aside from what I've just done, I will need to fertilize all of these things pretty heavily, as they are heavy feeders, and make sure that they get adequate water. But aside from that, and hoeing the onions and hilling them, I don't really have to do anything here. I also don't need to put on netting, insect netting, so that's one of the reasons I chose to do it in the front yard, so that it doesn't look really shitty with a bunch of nets all over it. And we'll just hope and see how it goes. So out here we've got 120 heads of garlic, hopefully. We've got 190 shallots, hopefully. We've got 180 onions, hopefully, and we've got like 30 leeks. And then in the back, I have like about another like 140 onions back there and another 30 or so leeks. So I am hoping that I'll have a year's supply of onions and shallots and garlic. And like enough leeks to like just be fun. We're not huge leek eaters, to be honest. I only really like to braise them in white wine and then eat them that way. So I don't know how many times I'm gonna need to eat that, but it's still very exciting.